SBA loans, 504 versus 7A SBA loans. Which one is better? My name is Jonathan Fodera and I am the owner of Integrated Business Financing. I've been in small business lending the past 14 years and I'm going to dig into which one's better and which is the best for what you're trying to do today. So obviously both loans are SBA loans and both can be used for similar purposes. However, there are some differences. Let's start with where they're the same. So first, both of them have a minimum of $125,000 with a max of $20 million. Now, on the 504 usually has a fixed rate, which means if you get, let's say, 5% interest over the life of that loan, it's not changing. The 7A can have a fixed rate or can have a variable rate. Now, why is that important? Why does that matter? Well, if you get a 7A loan right now, interest rates are at an all-time low. So you could be paying 4 or 5%. However, if that rate is not fixed and if it's variable, as the interest rates climb, that rate is going to go up. It might go up to 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. And basically that could put you at risk. Now, is that the worst thing if you have a variable? No, because you're going to be paying a super cheap rate now. However, if you're comparing it just off those two items, you're going to want to try to get a fixed rate on the 7A. Next, when we compare these two, what is the down payment or requirement? Well, on the 504, it's only 10%. On the 7A, it's advertised as low as 10%, but usually it's 20 and can be 30% depending on what type of business it is. So with the 504, there is actually less to put down versus the 7A where you have to come out of pocket and put more down on the loan. And again, that's not the worst thing in the world. The SBA wants you to have what they call skin in the game. All right, I'll give you an example. We do a lot of franchise financing and one of the franchises we work with is called PFIT. And in PFIT, there are certain items that you have to buy to get the gym going. You need equipment, you need build out costs, you need a rent deposit. These are all things that no matter what, you're going to have to spend the money on anyway. So once you spend the money on those items, that can count as putting money down. That could be that 20%. So if you're looking to get an SBA loan of, let's say, $300,000, you need to buy $60,000 worth of equipment and build out expenses. And then that counts as your money down. I have a client, his name's Mike. He's putting up a gym. We got him $700,000 for it. And he had all the money down that he needed. And the process was smooth and easy. And he got a 7A to open up one of the gyms. After we went through everything, he couldn't believe how smooth it went. And he thanked me. He said, hey, this was really easy. And I have a cheap rate. And his rate was fixed. It was not variable. I try to steer everyone towards a fixed rate. Now, one of the things that is different in both loans is the length of time. So with the 504, traditionally they're going to be 20 to 25 years. And you're buying a building. And it has to do with construction costs. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But typically, it always has some type of building or asset purchase. With the 7A, you could be starting a business and you can buy a building or you can buy a business that building's included, or you could be using it for working capital and equipment and things like that. So in that case, if you're using it for working capital, equipment, or marketing, it's going to be a shorter term. It could be 5 to 10 years. If there's real estate included, it can go out to 20, 25 years. So with the 7A, there's more options and more flexibility on what you can do with the money. And the most typical SBA loans, most of the SBA loans that go through are 7As. They're not 504s, right? They're a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, a little bit less documentation. Now, can you get other items in your 504? Yes, you can get equipment and there are certain things that you can get in there. And if you get equipment, it could be a little bit shorter. But for the most part, the 7A is going to have the most flexibility. And depending on what you're using it for, that is going to depend on the length of the loan. And if you're using it for multiple things, if you're buying a building, you have equipment, and you're using it for working capital, they're going to take a weighted average. And so it could land anywhere from that 5 to 25 year mark. All right. And all that means is that's going to determine what the payment is over the course of the loan. Now, one of the ways they really differ, and this is important to get into, is a 504, you're really using it for construction of a building. With a 7A, you could buy a building, but it's really, the 504 is used as a commercial real estate SBA loan, where the 7A has a lot more flexibility. You can use it to start a business, acquire a business. You could use it for working capital. You can use it to refinance or consolidate debt. You can use it to purchase equipment. So the 7A has a lot more practicality and a lot more flexibility. And that's why the majority of SBA loans that you see are usually 7A SBA loans. Now, a couple things. We went over what the differences are, and there's no right or wrong answer on which one's better. It's always going to be based on what you're using the funds for. If you're trying to buy a building and build out that building and you have a lot of renovations and you want to add equipment, you go with the 504. If you're buying buying a business or you're using it to consolidate debt or buy equipment or working capital or to start a business like a franchise, an SBA approved franchise, you go with the 7A SBA loan. And that's really the difference is it's kind of like you're building a house, and there's certain parts of the house that you're building and you're gonna need a hammer. There's certain parts of the house that you're gonna need a screwdriver. Certain times you're gonna need a screw gun. It really depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, which loan you should get. Here's a couple of takeaways. We went through everything that you need to know about the 504 versus the 7A. If you are serious about getting an SBA loan, I'm gonna give you a quick action plan that's gonna help you. First, make sure you have a personal financial statement. That's just going to be your assets minus your liabilities. It's your own basic balance sheet. And at the end, you'll see exactly what your net worth is. Have that ready. The next thing I want you to do is go on Credit Karma. Why? Well, check your credit score. You need a 680 credit or better. So make sure your credit is in line. Now, if you have an existing business, go through the tax returns. Make sure the last 2 tax returns you are profitable. The more profit you have, the more you're gonna qualify for. And if you're looking to buy a business or get into a franchise, make sure it's an SBA approved franchise. If you have all that, you have a good basis and idea of what you're gonna need to move forward. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm readily available. And remember, integrate your business to win. I hope to catch up with you soon. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, let us know.